Hello, it is week number 5. And so I'm going to look back at last week, which was week number 4. You completed Hawks 4.3 and 4.4. I think those are some of the most difficult sections of Hawks, but they're also the two most important sections of Hawks by far. So percentages are used throughout the rest of this course. So even though I think those were a little bit more difficult, they're also the most important. You also completed a decimal lab. I usually wait and see how you do on the first week's assignments, the grandma weighs what, the recipe lab, that type of thing, before I decide on the decimal lab. But rounding is very, very important. You cannot get Hawks problems correct if you don't know how to round to the specific unit that they request. So that was just something that we needed to freshen up on that I had seen in your previous weeks. We have a Chapter 4 test coming up this week, and I'm going to talk about more of that, but I asked you last week to review the proctoring information and to kind of get an idea of which type of proctoring technique you decided to select. You can use Proctor U for your exam. You can take it at the Academic Success Center on main campus or in Scotland County, and you can take the test with me if your schedule works with my schedule on main campus. And then lastly, we had our second flip grid. You were to post about the recipe lab, the grocery lab, and the grandma weighs what lab, and just how those things had come about in your life. We didn't have as good of a flip grid response this week as we had the previous week, so I'm actually getting ready to respond to those today. I wanted to wait. I posted my initial post last week, but I haven't responded, just kind of to see where things trickled in. Okay, let's talk about this week. You have a chemistry lab. This is a big lab, and I got it from a chemistry instructor at Richmond Community College. And if you ever take chemistry, if you've ever taken chemistry, some of these terms and phrases are going to be familiar to you, but if not, that's okay. I have made a video going through almost every single problem. I don't do the lab for you, but I help you get a jump start on almost every single problem on the chemistry lab. So don't open it up and completely feel overwhelmed and frazzled. Open it up, watch my video, and then complete the problems, maybe simultaneously or after you watch the video. It can be intimidating if you just start reading the chemistry lab and you're talking about butane and oxygen and carbon and things like that. But watch my video, and I pretty much go through it step by step with you. You also have a Chapter 4 review in Hawks, as well as a Chapter 4 quiz. Now, before I move on to the quiz, the Hawks Chapter 4 review and the Hawks Chapter 4 quiz are paired 1-to-1. So if there's a question on the quiz, there's a question on the review. If there's a question on the review, there's a question on the quiz. So as you're going through the review, if there's anything on there that trips you up, anything that you're not familiar with, write it down and study it before you take the quiz, because if it's on the review, it's going to be on the quiz. You can take the review as many times as you want to. So you can practice it 2 or 3 or 4 times until you're sure you're familiar. Now, you're not going to be able to use any notes or internet devices on the quiz. I guess I'll talk about that now. The quiz is open from February 11th all the way through February 24th. Now, someone sent me a message about that on the Remind app. The reason that it's opened beyond the due date is, I don't have Moodle pulled up. It is due on February 17th. That is the due date. But I have the quiz open through the 24th in case anybody's late. I want to give you a chance, even if you're late, it's 10 points off per day, but I don't want anyone to get a 0 for the quiz. So that's why if you look at it on Hawks Learning, it says it's due the 24th, but that is only for people that have selected to be late. You do have to have a proctor appointment because it's password protected and you don't know the password. So you either have to set up an appointment with Proctor U, the Academic Success Centers on main campus or Laurinburg, or with myself, and we have the password. If you've never used Proctor U, I want to just give you a few little heads up on that. It is something that you need to give yourself time with. I know this from experience, okay? For example, my son took a test on Proctor U in this very chair that I'm sitting in this very room, and they made him get a mirror, and he had to show the whole room to make sure there was nobody over here feeding answers to him. He also had to have a photo ID, which at the time, to be honest, he didn't have, and he had to run outside and get his ID out of the car. Give yourself time if this is the first Proctor U you've ever had. Give yourself time to make sure your equipment works, to make sure that, they're comfortable with the environment. Other people cannot be in the room. You can't have a laptop sitting over to the side. They are very sort of protective of the testing environment. So my advice to you is, if it's your first time with Proctor U, do not be intimidated, but just make sure you give yourself some time. Give yourself some time just to make sure you have everything set up and correct. I did want to say one thing about the labs. Most of you last week scanned in your labs and you had handwritten the work on the worksheet and you scanned it in as a PDF. A couple people as a Word document. But you do not have to type all of the work in your labs. You can write it on the lab by hand, and then you can use an iPhone. I'm sure an Android does it as well, but I don't know how. On the iPhone, if you go to the Notes app, and then you select the little camera icon and scan, you can take a picture and it'll scan it as a PDF. Then you email it to yourself and then attach it to Moodle as a PDF. I'm not going to grade it unless it's attached as a PDF or a Word document. Not because I'm being ugly, because Moodle will not allow me to open it. I sent someone this week a screenshot of their lab and it was just blank. I cannot physically see it if you do not upload it. That's the only way that Moodle will allow us to open documents, PDF or Word. So you don't have to type it in, though. If you don't know how to scan and you need some more help on that, send me a message. I think at this point in time, everyone has signed up for the Remind app, and I've had a lot of contact, a lot of questions, just quick questions. A couple ladies told me the other day that Flipgrid was down, and that did get straightened out. So please let me know if you see anything that's off. Someone else sent me a message about the quiz. Notice that the quiz was not due until the 24th. And the reason it's open until the 24th is for people that want to turn it in late. It is due on the 17th, and I have that specified in Moodle. I think that's it for this week. Again, this is your first proctored quiz. This class is divided up into two categories, proctored quizzes and unproctored. We'll have two of each, two proctored and two unproctored. And so if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a good weekend.